You're listening to the Flickcast, a podcast about stuff nerds love. I am Chris Ulrich, and joining me, of course, my co-host, Mr. Joe Dilworth. Joe, how are you, sir?
Ooh, I'm a Mister this week. Interesting.
That's right, Mister. I threw that in there because that's what Alison Pill calls Picard.
I know. Yes.
Okay, Mister.
Are you okay there, Mister?
Yeah. I'm wondering why she does that, but I guess there's a reason, and I just don't remember what it is. But we'll get to Picard today. On today's episode of the Flickcast, we will talk about Star Trek Picard, and we will talk about the new 4K director's beautiful release of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and we'll probably talk about some other stuff too. But I can't think of what that is. I'm sure we'll segue into something at some point.
Well,
but
we'll have some non sequiturs, of course.
I do enjoy Star Trek, so this might be more of a Star Trek-centric episode, which sometimes it happens. But if you don't love Star Trek, then A, what's wrong with you? And B, listen to a different show today, I guess.
Go watch them and then come back.
Go watch them and come back, yeah. So I'm looking forward to, we're still talking about Strange New Worlds, I'm looking forward to that, but we should get into a very... What's the word I want to say? Politically infused episode of Picard.
Politically charged.
Politically charged. A woke episode of Star Trek Picard. And spoilers, if you haven't seen the episode, but also spoilers because, yes, folks, Picard leaves the ship and goes and does something.
He does. Yes, he's a man of action this episode. Were you less worried about him?
Man of action this episode.
He looked less frail.
No, I was. He seemed... He actually sprinted to the car in that one scene. I'm like, wow. But then in the park, when he goes to the park with Guinan, and he's like, how much further? And it's like he's been walking for 30 seconds. He's like, I'm tired. Dude, the guy's gonna die right there. He is a national treasure. Be careful with him, please. Anyway, so do you want to talk about Picard, or do you want to talk about Star Trek: The Motion Picture first?
Let's talk about Picard. Although I'm a little concerned that you're watching this much like people watch The Walking Dead. It's like, is this going to be the episode where Picard kicks it? I don't know. Let's tune in and watch.
No, he doesn't. I don't expect him to die because they're doing season 3. In fact, they're almost done filming season 3. But season 3, according to all reports, will be the last season of Picard.
Yes,
mostly because it was conceived as a 3-season show, but also because Patrick Stewart's 90. He's probably not going to want to do episodic television forever.
Right.
Maybe he'll do a Star Trek podcast. I think that'd be interesting.
That would be fun.
But yeah, this was a good episode. And last week I was a little bit. I don't know what the word is. Like, oh, Rios, whatever. But they kind of redeemed themselves a little bit with this episode. Although, they had to go through all the Homeland Security guys are real assholes. Shocking.
Yes.
And all that stuff. But Rios he's definitely growing on me. I mean, I don't dislike his character, but in this episode, I liked him. And I liked his sort of exchange with the doctor. I thought they had a good scene while they were locked up there. But I'm liking him. And Alison Pill, of course, killed it again this week, and the Borg Queen, whose name the actress escapes me, Annie Wershing, I think her name is. But
exactly,
anyway, she was good too. Yeah, she was good too. What's your reaction, Joe?
I liked it a lot for all the reasons that you named. Also because I think Raffi and Seven got to do some cool stuff, and I liked. There's a lot of great lines in this. It's like, I just hate everything, and you hide it so well. And it was, I thought it was interesting to kind of flip the dynamic and have Seven be the reasonable and the reasonable one, and be like, oh, no, thank you. You're doing a great job. Let's go over here. And Raffi being the one that's just in your face about everything. Because, typically Seven has been pretty no nonsense, right? And she's like, I'm not going to brook any banter or anything. I need my information. And so made it the other way until they got in the car, and she's like, you know what, fuck this, I'm gonna take control, and we're going. That was and the other thing
I think that go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say the other thing I appreciate about this is they're not dwelling on, because even in previous Star Trek episodes where they go to our present or the present of the time, and most other time travel type things like that, they always have way too much fun with the whimsical, oh, how do you do this? And it's like, oh, these I can't figure this out. And I'm, I don't know what that word means and stuff. And they've downplayed that considerably in this. I mean, they want to get to the story too, yes, but they haven't
right.
Emphasized
they only have 40 minutes, so they got to hurry.
So no, I
Well,
really liked
except
it.
sorry,
Except for
I
what?
keep interrupting you. I
No, it's
apologize.
okay. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying except they didn't really do any of that except for the fantastic callback from Star Trek 4
Ah, yes.
with the original actor Kirk Thatcher on the bus as the punk playing his music, but this time, of course, they had to flip it a little bit. He's like, "I'm sorry."
Yes.
He just quiets down. So that was pretty funny. But the same guy who played the same character basically on the bus in
who
Star Trek 4
who
when Kirk and
also
Spock are on the
appeared
bus.
in Spider-Man: Homecoming. So he's a higher multi-dimensional
Yes.
being.
He is. He's like a watcher himself, like Stanley, or whatever. I knew they'd bring back his friend Picard's friend too. I figured that had to be her because she's still in the opening credits of
Yes.
the show. So I was like, oh, it's going to be her. Yeah, I really like this episode too, and I think you're right. I think that's probably one reason Jerry Ryan was interested in staying on because now they can humanize her more instead of just being this no nonsense Borg. She can go back to being a human being and have more feelings and be the more reasonable one, and that's probably good for her and it's something fun for her to do. And then Rafi, she can be the more hot-headed one and be all bummed out about Elnor and all that stuff. And everyone's got to have something to do, right? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and now Rios can be upset about the situation with modern society and the way Latinos are treated and people like that and tell that story. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's going to turn out. She's like, if you ever need anything, it's like, yeah, we need a doctor in the future or something like that. So maybe she'll join the show. I don't know.
Right.
But
See.
you're not doing anything significant here. So although in this
Wow.
case she's got a son. So they take the
Oh.
kid too. So I don't think she'll be joining because that's actually it's funny. You saw that we were talking about that last week, but then it turned out that the guy from that movie from the bus is in this episode too. So there's definitely a lot of callbacks to Star Trek 4 in this one. But yeah, I don't think they'll take her along probably because they're not going to bring her son too. And she is performing a valuable service, whereas there's lots of marine biologists, I guess, in the past. I don't know, but there isn't any in the future apparently.
Well, there's a
That's not something you
couple.
study.
There's a couple other callbacks too in this episode. Girardi
Yeah.
says, "Oh, look at you, Dixon Hill," which is
Yeah,
Picard's favorite mystery character in a series of books.
Mr. Dixon Hill.
Written by Tracy Torme, who used to write for Star Trek, and they don't actually exist. And the book the woman was reading the mysterious woman was reading at the end was by the author was Tracy Torme. So that was kind of cool. And there was a nice little subtle callback that there was a storefront. I think it was a bakery. Now I can't remember, but it was the exact same window lettering and everything as a storefront that Kirk and Keeler passed in City on the Edge of. There were a lot of little callbacks.
And also there's one more actually, at least because at the end when Q is there trying to influence that woman,
Yes.
if you look, she comes out of the Jackson Roy Kirk building.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes. Exactly.
Which, of course, if anyone remembers their Star Trek OG original series trivia, that's someone who I think had something to do with the Nomad computer, but I can't remember exactly. So I shouldn't have said anything if I don't know the exact story. But
Because the only way they were
Jackson
able
Roy
to
Kirk.
subdue Nomad is because of James T. Kirk. It sounded enough like that centuries-old computer as Jackson Roy Kirk.
Yeah. So I wonder who that woman is. I wonder if that's so. If there's going to be a connection at some point to Data, right? So or to Noonien Soon or somebody.
Yeah.
So I wonder if she's in a relationship to Data or to Soong, because Jackson Roy Kirk is an Easter egg of artificial intelligence, blah blah blah. So I wonder if she's going to have some influence, and why is Q there trying to talk to her, and what happened to his powers? That's another question too. So
Yeah.
that was interesting. That's unfortunate. It's like
Maybe
what
she's
a great gig for John Delancey, though.
Oh, I know. Maybe
Right?
she's married to the Soong of the 2024, or his daughter, or something.
Right. Yeah, I don't remember the exact backstory, but I know that the guy he's got a brother named Soong. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the point is that there's this. I would bet there's some relationship between her, and that's got to be. She's probably the focal point that they're talking about.
Yes.
Where artificial intelligence happens or doesn't happen or something. But because why is Q there and why is she reading. Well, what is she reading? I'm sure it has something to do with what's happening. I don't remember the book, but
Yeah, I don't either, but
she's
yeah.
he can't influence. Oh, I wonder if he can't influence her because she's an android.
Maybe.
Anyway,
I just thought it
I
was
don't know.
funny that he snaps and then she immediately laughs without acknowledging him. So it's like, huh. So is she reading in the book what's happening around? Get very meta with this.
Or I don't know. Or it's just that she just laughed and he was trying to make her sad and she didn't. He's like, oh, that's weird. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's like 6 more episodes or
I
5
think
more
we'll
episodes.
find
I'll
out.
figure it
Yeah.
out. But yeah, yeah. But it's the idea that it's 3 seasons. And they're going to establish, or I'm sorry, not establish, but they're going to go through a different sort of facet of Jean-Luc Picard's life. This is his, the Road Not Taken series season where he's going to, find out what he should have done. And I wonder if it'll turn out that his girlfriend is a Q too, or something, or a watcher or whatever. I mean, she's a watcher, obviously, but what kind of being is she? Because she's like taking
Ah,
over people
see,
and stuff. So that's
so
going to
I
be,
had a couple
yeah.
more things I wanted to address, and the whole thing with the
Oh yeah, go for it. Go for
so
it.
the whole thing with the Watcher,
Yeah.
especially calling her a supervisor, is and the effect when she abducted him at the end is it's either referencing or it's meant to be the same thing as Gary Seven from Assignment Earth on the original series, because he was a supervisor that was sent by whatever beings we never found out, but he was sent to Earth in 1968 to observe and find out why something went awry. And she's called supervisor. So, and the effect when she abducted Kirk was very similar to an effect when Gary Seven took Kirk and Spock to his office on Earth. So I wonder if we're doing a deep dive and we're actually going to find out Gary Seven's people, Watchers from. So it makes sense.
Well, that's actually interesting because Gary Seven's mission was to watch, right? And to
Yes.
sort of help humanity and sort of prevent, because that's what happens in the episode. He prevents the nuclear missile launch, right?
Exactly. They think he's there to start it, and they're trying to stop him. He's like, no, 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 no. I'm trying to stop that from
Right.
happening. So yeah, I wonder if this is a revisit of that, which I'm totally for. I mean, the actor, unfortunately, who played Gary Seven is no longer with us. And it doesn't have to be. I mean, it can be just someone else from his agency or whatever. So it doesn't. Could be Isis the cat. Maybe we actually find out who and what Isis was, because Isis the cat was a shapeshifter, and
Wasn't she a flirkin? I thought she was a flirkin.
yeah, she's a flirkin, and is able to.
That's how it all ties together.
I think is able to send her consciousness around and stuff. So maybe we get Isis. Maybe she's become a supervisor for Gary Seven. I don't know, but it seems like too much of a link in various ways not to have something to do with it.
Well, if Laris is just standing there and in the next scene the cat jumps in her arms, you know what's going on.
Well,
But,
and is she Laris? She doesn't have the ears. I mean, I know they can surgically alter in Star Trek, but she doesn't have Romulan ears.
well, she doesn't need to, because in the original series, Gary Seven was a human that got abducted from Earth and
Right.
trained by the other people to come back to help to help the United States or the world. So she could be a human now, but then they could sort of change her into whatever later, or this person is just taking on this form because it's a comforting form to Picard. Maybe I don't know, but I like the idea that Guinan was younger and very radicalized and was like, fuck Earth, this is bullshit. It was pretty cool, but I like this episode a lot. There was a lot of cool callbacks, but I think you're right. I think that you're right. I think it's a callback to Simon Earth, definitely.
And the other thing to address. So first of all, for a twisty time travel storyline, it was smart on production's part to bring in Terry Matalas as showrunner, because he developed and ran the wonderful series 12 Monkeys, which did a lot of really interesting things with time travel and manipulation and things like that. And I thought it was fantastic. So when they announced that he was going to be showrunner for season 2 and 3 of Picard, I'm like, oh, they're probably going to introduce time travel somehow because he's a master at that. So along those lines, a lot of people, especially true fans, TM, pointed out, well, Guinan should have known Picard because of the Next Generation episode, two-parter Time Zero, where they met Guinan, a form of Guinan, in the 1800s with Samuel Clemens. So from her point of view, she's already met Picard, so she should know him, right? Well, she would, except the past, the present day that they're in, is the past of the Confederate. Starfleet never existed, so they never went back in time. They never met her in the 1800s.
Right.
I'm like, people are like, well, that doesn't sound right. I'm like, well, they showed us that on screen. They were in the universe of the Confederation, and they went back in time. So they're in the past, and if they stop whatever it is or change whatever it is that causes the Confederation to exist, that will get wiped away. Starfleet will exist, and they will have gone back in time. At this point, they haven't, because there is no Starfleet to do that with. So there you go. Very simple.
Which is why Guinan's also having like sickness and time, temporal, whatever, because everything's different.
Yeah.
Especially when she meets Kirk. But yes.
Picard.
But let's keep in mind.
She doesn't meet Kirk.
I said Kirk, didn't I? Well, maybe she meets Kirk too at some point. You don't know.
And then
I'm sorry. I was still thinking about Assignment Earth. That's why.
Then some people were like, "Well, then how come the bus punk guy kind of touched his neck?" Like, well, first of all, he's probably a multi-dimensional being, so he would have time sickness too, and kind of remember that. But second of all, if you discount that, there was no indication he just like touched the front of his neck. Maybe somebody I would imagine at some point somebody else like karate chopped him in the neck or something, because maybe I'll be nice.
Well, if we're making the case that it's the exact same person, why is he not in San Francisco? I don't know. Why did he move to LA? What's going on? Why
it's been 30 years. Maybe he's like, maybe they ran him out.
Why has he still got a
boom box
or an iPad? Yeah, why has he still got a boom box? What's going on? Why is anything? Does anything happen?
Like that was there for a masquerade. Joke.
Yeah, that's a joke, folks. It's a callback to help you evoke other time travel aspects of Star Trek.
Yes.
So anyway,
but no, I thought it was
a good episode.
Yeah, it was a great episode. I really like this season. As I've said before, I'm a huge sucker for both time travel and alternate universe stories. So you throw them both together in something that's well written with characters that I already know and love, then it's just.
Well, I think that I'm always Patrick Stewart is a favorite of mine, so I'm always going to be concerned with his life and whatever.
You seem really concerned every week about is he?
No, he's not. Nothing's gonna happen, because I know nothing happens to him, and Picard's not gonna die. Although technically he died in the first season, so there you go.
You know they're not sitting around going, "Come on, Sir Patrick, get up. You got to do this scene. I'm too tired. I don't care. We're paying you." You know they're not doing that.
Yeah, come on, old man. We're paying you.
They're not doing that. He's okay.
2 hours a day or something.
Yeah.
I know. It's just funny. And the things you notice, because I notice he's leaning everywhere and whatever, and all that stuff.
I think we're meant to do that. I think they're making him act frail on the show because all these things are affecting him.
Well, again, if you're gonna replace the person's body with a new robot, a cybernetic body, wouldn't you give them one that's like not frail?
They said they didn't do that though. They were specific about that.
Yeah, I know. They should have that. They should have given him a better one.
They should have made him superhuman.
Should have made him superhuman. Exactly. They should have made him superhuman, I think. In fact, I think it's funny that he has that conversation with the guard or whatever. I'm not sure. No one seems to want to explain that to me. Crystal Ball has that with the Homeland Security guy, and the Homeland Security guy's like, whatever, man.
Yeah, he lays out crazy. Like, I'm going to tell you the exact truth, and it was like,
no one believes him.
Yeah, that was great.
But anyway, it's a fun show, and I'm really enjoying all the characters, and I'm glad they brought the Borg Queen back. But here's my question about her: if she's like so powerful with her little tentacles and stuff, couldn't she just take over the ship and fly away? I mean, I don't know how they're keeping her at bay, but I guess they are. I guess Alison Pill, Dr. Girardi is just so smart.
I mean, if I had to pick something I have a beat, it would be her role in her scenes, only because it seems like she has more control than she's letting on and will only help them out.
Yeah.
In bits and pieces, but I'm like, you're in the same pickle they are. If this doesn't get fixed, you have no collective and you're done. So wouldn't you want to at least
You think
put?
that the Borg exists no matter what,
Well, I
though?
think
I
they
feel like they
do,
would
but I don't
exist.
think she has a way to get to them. And she's like right now cut off from the collective, as they keep pointing out. And she wants to get back to
Mm,
that, and she wants to get back to her collective. So it's like,
right.
well, the only way you're going to do that is if you help them fix these things. Why are you being so obstinate about it? And I get it, she's manipulative, and she apparently has a big interest in Agnes. Maybe she would have been more conciliatory before her mental encounter with Agnes. And okay, so I do want to get this fixed, and ultimately I'll help out, but I want to manipulate this to my advantage. So I get this person to take her as queen or be a new queen or something. Because I think that's kind of where we're headed, right? That eventually Agnes is going to be. Maybe? I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. Maybe because she's already sort of inhuman as it is.
Well, she
So I don't
seems to
know. I
be
mean,
smart about it too, because there's parts where you think, oh, I like how they play her that, oh, she's gonna be emotionally manipulated here, and then she just kind of stops and just smiles, and she's like, yeah, no, that doesn't work on me. I don't know. I really like that character. I've liked her in the first season. I think they've done even better with her this season. And I got that mixture of vulnerability, but when it comes to it, it's like, look, you don't help me, I'm gonna. What do you want? And she's like, well, I want you. And she's like, great, we'll have conversations in between crisis. But then as soon as the crisis was done, she walks away. It was like, huh. So she's not even going to live up to her bargain. That's kind of cool. So I don't know.
well, the queen pointed out, you're cold. You're just
Yeah.
you're cruel. Whatever. It's like, yeah. I mean, she did murder a dude last season,
Well,
so it's
yeah,
like
she did. Yes.
let's not forget about that. Yeah, I think that I don't know that she'll end up being a Borg, but I think she's going to end up being, if not an antagonist, maybe she will be an antagonist in the third season. I don't know. Maybe she does become a Borg. Maybe she does find that connection that she's always been looking for because she's spent her life dealing with androids and synthetics and artificial intelligence and stuff. Maybe she's going to join the Borg and become, everything she always wanted to be,
Yeah.
and that'll be the person they have to fight in the third season. Although I don't know. I don't see them. This seems like more of a, what's the word for it? It's more of a personal story than it
Yeah.
is like a big space battle story. So I don't know that they're going to go to space and have this whole
I think more of
thing
her.
where fighting the Borg and stuff.
I
But
think, and especially the way they've had characters, not really redemptive, but earn stuff. It would make more sense if by the end of it, she's like, not only is she's like, I'm resisting you, but she's also like, I see too much of the Borg Queen reflected in just how I conduct my life, and maybe caring and maybe connecting isn't a bad thing. And there's these people that I'm with now that, despite my best intentions and actions, seem to care about me. So this isn't a bad. I think she's learning how to be more human, while at the same time the Borg
yeah,
Queen is thinking that she's making her more of a Borg and feeding on those things. And instead of manipulating those the way that she thinks, it's like you're highlighting the things about me that are bad, and you know what? I don't like those, and that's not. I think that's kind of where we're heading.
yeah. I think you're right, and I think she'll. I think mostly that's because of her relationship with Picard, because she.
Right.
I mean, I don't think she's like in love with him or anything, but she definitely. I feel like she didn't have much of a family life probably growing up, and maybe he's a surrogate father kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you see this part where she's like beaming, so excited that he values her. He's like, no one's ever probably no one's ever spoken to her like that before, or meant it, and
Right.
didn't want anything from her, kind of.
Right.
So it's just just to do her best, just to do her best work, and he believes in her, and we're all counting on you, and probably no one's ever given her that kind of, I guess, love is what is the
Yeah.
word. I mean, whatever you want to call it. It's the whole idea of a surrogate family, right? Picard never had a family.
Right. Right.
I mean, he had the crew of the Enterprise, and now he's got these people, and they're all gelling together to save humanity, but also to save themselves, right? And so he, if anything, Picard is a smart person, but he's also, I think one thing that I liked about his character all along is he's got compassion, right? He's not Kirk has compassion in a different way, and Kirk is more of an action guy and more of a whatever, but Picard is more of a philosopher type. It's like shoot second,
Right.
talk first, right?
Yes.
And so he's introspective and intelligent and thoughtful, and he cares about things. I mean, he'll kick ass if he has to, because the line must be drawn here, Joe. But
right. There,
this far, no further.
there were only 4 lights.
But 4 fucking lights, bitch. Okay, I'm just saying. Anyway, but the fact that he's basically, if you think about it, sacrificed his entire life for the good of others.
Yes.
And I mean, whether that's by, by design, or whether it's just he doesn't want attachments, or he really just loves, hopping galaxies, as Bones used to say about Kirk. But it's like, it's time to, like Q says, examine the road not taken, which I think is a great idea for a character like Picard. And it's making for some interesting TV.
Well, and he's like
some stories for
and maybe
I'm excited about it.
And maybe in all of Star Trek, he's like the one character that most of the times it's like, okay, well, we'll try to talk, and if talking doesn't work within the first couple times, even on Discovery, it's like we have a backup plan. If talking doesn't work, we're gonna blow some shit up. Thankfully, they didn't get to that, but Picard is like, even when it's like, well, it's too late, and he's like, I refuse to believe that. That's not true. He's just like, with Guinan, like the scenes with Guinan, he just like kept on. He's like, no. I mean, it kind of helped that her vicious attack dog was like, oh, you're cool. But, he's
and dogs know, man, they know.
He's good about pointing out, even when she's like, this can't be the tipping point, because they're nowhere near even thinking about going in a different direction. It brings up, change rarely happens when you want it to, or when you expect it to. With a smile, it's just like, Jesus, this guy is like relentlessly optimistic, but it's infectious, because eventually he breaks down people and they're like, damn it, fine. Fine, we'll do it your way.
It's funny, he says that because what he's really talking about is himself too.
Yes.
Change never happens when you want it to, because he's finally, maybe it's finally dawning on him. Although I feel like he's thought about it before, like with
Beverly Crusher, he did quite a few times.
In first contact, but I think it was first contact. When Renee dies, right? His nephew. He's talking about, he's like, there's fewer days ahead of me than behind, etc. He's waxing sort of philosophical about what could have happened, the road not taken, really.
Yeah.
And so he really only gets super incensed and super passionate and angry about shit and wanting to murder when it's about the Borg, because they violated him.
Yes.
So he wants revenge, like she points out, you broke all your little ships or whatever. And he's like, we don't succumb to revenge. How dare you? And he's like, oh shit, you're right. Now we got to blow up the ship.
Yep. Yes, exactly.
That's the solution to everything.
Yeah, we're just gonna blow it.
And what does he do at the beginning of the series? Like, fuck it, I'm blowing up the ship. That's their go-to.
Yes.
Destruct. Blow the shit up. So he's willing to sacrifice, and he sacrificed everybody in that ship and the whole fleet to kill, the Borg Queen or whatever at the beginning. So that's the kind of person that Picard is. So it's like he's never had a chance to have that life. And maybe history will change slightly.
Yes.
And he'll realize how important that is too. And he shouldn't have forgotten that aspect of his life. So I don't know. It's cool to get this chance to explore this. And I'm glad they decided to bring this show, to do it, because you don't really get that. Even in 7 seasons of Enterprise, you didn't get Enterprise, but in Next Generation, you don't get, you didn't get all that. You got a lot, but you didn't get all of it. So
I think
I'm sure is one thing that appealed to Patrick Stewart. So
there's one subtle thing that they haven't, and I don't think they need to. I'm glad, like, for the time travel aspect, why Guinan doesn't recognize him. There's a lot of little things that they haven't, like, outwardly explained. Like, there's no him going, I wonder why she doesn't remember me, blah, blah, blah. The other thing they haven't pointed out is the little subtle difference that because he's in an android body, the Borg aren't in his head anymore. They were in the first season when he went above the Borg cube, aboard the Borg cube, but not now. And that's because it's a different body, different brain. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of a subtle difference. So he seems to be more, I guess, less helpless when it comes to dealing with the Borg this season, because they're not. He doesn't have that phantom in his head to be afraid of anymore. He's more decisive.
Right, and she even calls him Locutus.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother him because, he's a different, which may have been one of the reasons, I mean, I'm sure partially it was like they're going to explore what happens to people as they age. Obviously, people get sick and stuff like that, and they have to deal with that kind of stuff later in life. But also, you're right. That makes perfect sense because he's not, which makes the case where it's not the exact same person, right?
Right.
Because it's his consciousness, whatever that is, but it is a totally different. It's a a positronic brain or whatever, and a totally different body. So maybe the Borg can't penetrate it. Maybe because he's not human anymore. Technically,
Maybe.
they can't. So maybe that's the thing. Maybe they would if he was the same person, but it doesn't. Which again makes the case for maybe it's not the same person. So I don't know. It's funny that Q doesn't really say it. Does Q say anything about it? I actually thought he didn't mention it.
I don't remember. I'm gonna have to
I don't know.
rewatch it now. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch it, but I can't remember if Q makes a remark about that. You're not really the same, are you? Maybe he can't tell either. I mean, obviously, it's supposed to be that most people can't tell, but he definitely doesn't hear the Borg.
well,
Which you're right. Which is why he's probably not afraid to be in the room with her or anything. So that's cool.
Q has his own sick or ours are being interfered with. He's a little bit more.
He's having performance issues.
He's a little bit more super serious than he used to be, and quick to anger himself, which he normally was. And he hit Picard for
Well, that's
God's
interesting.
sake.
Yeah, you don't. He did. Yeah, you don't know how long the Q creatures or beings live, right? He could have been alive for millions of years, and this could be maybe it is the end of his life. Who knows?
Yeah,
And to say him, but the end of its life because or it's dying or whatever, or he really
yeah,
at the end of the day, Picard is his only friend, right? So
yeah. He's
anyway,
like, I just wanted to pal around with you one more time, man. Come on.
one more time, man, and also give you this gift in a way of being able to take the road not taken, right? Here's a gift that I'm going to give you to realize what's really important in life. It's not what you did was great, but this is the important shit that you should have been dealing with. And it's not too late for you. It's too late for me, but it's not too late for you. So I'm going to give this to you and let you
Or
experience it and realize.
and
Or
I just had this epiphany, especially if it's been envisioned as a 3-season show and that's it. Maybe they're doing a thing where, Q is coming to the end of its life and Picard is gaining new life and new perspective, and maybe Q is like, hey, I want to train. Basically, it's a job interview. He's trying to train Picard and get Picard to get the perspective to be able to become a Q and carry on. I don't know. It's like he's the first human that's really fascinated him, and I think he likes and appreciates Picard's perspective on things. It's like, what, if I nudge him a little further and help him a little bit more, he could become a Q or some kind of being like us. And now when he's basically coming to the end of his life, even in the android body, what better gift to give to my best friend? And hey, I can give you this thing where you can take over for me. You can still exist, still interact with people, but you have a bigger responsibility to all of existence instead of just the galaxy. I'm going to call that
it's
now.
an interesting theory. I still think it's more. I think that's too big. I think that's just too much of. I don't want to say the stakes are too big, but it's not human enough. I really think it's more. I still think Q might be at the end of his life or its life, but I really think it's more. I really value you as a person, as a friend, and I love you. Whatever. I'm going to give you this thing of perspective. I'm going to give you the gift of what could have been. I'm going to give you the gift of hindsight, but foresight at the same time. I think it's more that makes it more humanized. That makes it more personal to Picard. I think so. I'm going to call that. That's what Q's doing. I think.
Well, because
So we'll see.
Because
We'll
my
see
thinking
who's
is,
right.
well, it's a 3-season story, and then it's going to end. I mean, how do you end that without and then they go off to another adventure? It seems like they have an idea that there is going to be and with Picard definitely dying, be a downer, or does it
No.
end with him going on? And see, that would be a great
Ascending
way
through.
for Crusher to show up at the end and say, hey, I'm a traveler, and we're kind of part of this whole higher being kind of cadre that the Q are part of, and it's not a bad thing. You should come along. And maybe it's that Picard is like, I'd rather actually just choose to be done, and then maybe he doesn't accept it. But I don't know. I think that would be a cool thing for him to
I'm
do.
gonna make my wine. That's what I'm gonna do.
So that's kind of maybe it's not quite exactly like that, but I think that's because otherwise, why else would? And maybe it is because like, well, I miss my friend, but
Well,
it,
no, he showed up because this season they're dealing with what
yeah,
literally he just said why he showed up. He showed up to show Picard what could have been
yeah,
and to show him what was important because at the end of Q's life he realizes all of his mistakes and what he should have been doing. Humanity, compassion, empathy were actually more important. Family, whatever you want to call it, is more important or it should be as equally important. You shouldn't put that stuff aside. And that's why he's here. That's why he's there to show Picard what he could have been doing all this time. And again, it's not too late. You have this new lease on life. You're in this new body. You can live longer. You can still have time for these human connections
yeah,
that you put aside all this time. With whatever happened with your mom, which we don't know yet.
right.
So I think it's that simple, and I don't think that John Delancey's supposed to be on next season either. I don't think it's about him next season.
No,
It's just
he
more
is
about
because
is he? Oh,
yeah, because one of the last days of filming season 3, Patrick Stewart posted about just John Delancey was just wrapped, both had tears and hugged it
I
out and
cried.
talked about our history together and stuff like that. He's on season 3.
That's special.
Maybe he'll be
Yeah, well,
maybe he'll be depowered and become
maybe you're
part
right.
of the crew.
There you go. Yeah, he'll have to learn about humanity from Picard. The tables will be turned now.
Yeah.
'Cause Q will just be a normal human being. There you go. Anyway, well, yeah. Obviously, we'll see.
We'll
What happens.
find
But I
out.
also appreciate the fact that this episode was also directed by Leah Thompson, who does have again
Yes.
experience with time travel. But,
Yes, that was so
yeah,
cool.
it's cool. Yeah,
And she did a great
I
job.
haven't
She's
seen
a
any
really
back to-
good director.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she hasn't directed a ton, but she did a movie and some other TV. But this is she's doing well. I mean, I'm not surprised. It's that she can do it. It's just directing can be difficult,
Kinda-
especially during COVID times. But
Kind of shocked we didn't
I'm
at least
wondering
get
about. I
a
don't really.
we didn't get a picture of a DeLorean or something driving around or something.
I haven't seen any references to Back to the Future. Yeah, I was just going to say that. I don't know that I've seen any references, but maybe there'll be one, or maybe they're just trying to stay away from that stuff. I don't know, but anyway, we've talked about Picard for a while. The other thing I want to talk about, which is also Star Trek related, is the announcement of the director's version in 4K Ultra UHD with brand new visual effects, etc., etc., of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which a lot of people sort of disparage as kind of like boring or whatever.
I love that movie.
But I loved it. I loved it. Yeah, I cut school to go to the movie when I was a kid. I left school and my mom was cool about it. She took me to the movie instead. We saw the first screening on a Friday.
That
Or I
happened
did.
to
She
me as
she went
well.
in.
That was exactly it. My
Yeah.
mom kept me out of school and we went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Moms are cool about that kind of stuff. Yeah, and I watched it and I was like, wow, this is cool. I don't know if I got all of it because it was still it's very some of it's kind of intellectual in a way, and the characters weren't behaving exactly like I remember, and everything was slightly different. Kirk seemed a little bit more put on, and he was like all upset, and
Yeah.
and Decker was like, who's this Decker guy? That guy's a dick. And who's the bald girl? I don't understand that either. But it was fun, and now I saw the trailer. And I'm like, oh, well, they really did sort of enhance the visual effects. But then I also kind of worry about that kind of thing. Is like now they're going to change it too much, because there's a temptation to improve stuff to the point of ridiculousness, like George Lucas does, or try to improve things. But some of the changes they made look sort of subtle, but some of them don't. Some of them look very different. Like some of the ships look different, and some of the V'ger stuff looks different, very different. But I'm excited to watch
Well,
it. I'm gonna.
So
I might have
here
to get Paramount Plus now just for that.
So here's the thing about that, and this is only because I'm obsessed with this movie and I've kept up with it. So, yes, there was a theatrical version back in the day, which I love. So as a side note, kind of my beef with most of the Star Trek movies, especially the Next Generation ones, is they just have always felt to me like two-part episodes. Star Trek: The Motion Picture was like, yeah, all the uniforms and everything was different, but it was like, we're going to do a cinema approach to the story and really make it this grand, big thing. And it was just like, wow, this is really cool seeing these characters in a movie, but it's like, expanded to be this big, epic story, which I thought it was as a kid. It blew my mind.
Yeah.
And then years later, like, oh, well, we have the director's cut that came out on videotape. Remember, we talked about that in the pre-show. Director's
Yeah.
cut came out on videotape, but the problem was back in those days when they did director's cuts and stuff, they weren't really into putting a lot of money into them or any money. And so there, in the director's cut, the original one, there's this great scene where Kirk is leaving the airlock of the Enterprise to go after Spock, which is an added scene, but they didn't do any of the visual effects or anything around. So you see the soundstage and him suspended in front of this airlock. It was like, wait, what? You put that back in? That's weird. And then some of the other
Yeah.
things weren't quite finished. A few years ago, for the DVD release of Star Trek: The Motion Picture director's cut, they actually spent a little bit of money and at least finished the scenes that were going to be in the director's cut. So ever since then, people, and it was, but the rest of it was still like kind of the transfer from videotape, and it was still like, well, it's DVD, but it still looks pretty terrible and dated. So there's been a big thing, restore it and enhance it and make it a true 4K release. And there's been a big campaign for forever to have a better version of director's cut and stuff. And so they finally started working on that. And so they put a lot of work into this. And for what I understand, they didn't add anything new, as in like any added new scenes, but they enhanced so like, for example, as you saw in the trailer, you can actually see V'ger now, being this kind of blurry, dark cloud thing, which I thought was kind of cool because I've scrutinized the videotape and the DVDs I've had of that for years. Going,
I'm sure.
what the hell does this ship look like? And ooh, there's a glimpse there and stuff. And so now to actually get to see it, to me, is kind of cool. And it looks like they sharpened it up. They've done color correction, and and maybe they've redone some of the special effects and visual effects, and probably needed to if they were going to clean it up for 4K. But I'm just super excited to see this, and it's like I don't know. It'd be like if they went the other way and said, "Hey, we're releasing the original theatrical versions of the original Star Wars trilogy." That kind of like holy grail thing that I never thought we would see. A very pristine cut of the director's cut, and we're getting that now, and I'm very happy. Anyway,
Yeah. No, I liked it too. In fact, when I watched it, it was different than the series though, because there was less action. I felt like, and I just thought that it just felt different to me, and it kind of like the 20-minute sequence where Scotty's bringing Kirk to the new Enterprise. I was like, okay, get to the ship, guys. But only because I was a kid.
They wanted to show off the ship.
It was still cool. No,
show off the new model.
And it looked great. It looked like the Enterprise. I mean, I don't know. And of course, Kirk was in love with the Enterprise, so that made sense because he was basically like you couldn't see his hands. I'm saying
to me. I've always been a fan of the epic movies like Lawrence of Arabia and stuff, and this was like the last kind of epic movie in that kind of vein. I mean, there was even the overture at the beginning of the movie. I think it was like the last film that ever had that. And Robert Wise, the director, Robert Wise, actually fought for that because they were like, "Oh, we're going to remove that." And he's like, "No, this is film. This is cinema. Have that."
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Like 2001. That's what he kind of wanted it to be, I think.
Yeah, and it just I will always love that movie, and don't listen to the haters.
No, I didn't listen. I didn't listen to the haters. I thought that that Robert Wise was an interesting choice in retrospect. I mean, he really hadn't done a lot of sci-fi. I mean, he did Day the Earth Stood Still and stuff, but it's like he was sort of an interesting director. I mean, his most popular movies were like West Side Story and stuff. He'd won the Academy Award for that and Sound of Music and whatever. But the other thing to keep in mind too is this was a very expensive movie at the time. In fact, I think it was the most expensive movie of the time, $44 million or something like that. But that was also because they absorbed the cost of Star Trek Phase 2, which was the new series they were trying to do, which got scrapped. And so even though the movie made like $140 million, it was still considered a failure. So that's one of the reasons that Gene Roddenberry was ousted from creative control. And then we got Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, which also great movie, by the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But a totally different kind of movie, a very, very action-oriented, very whatever, not esoteric or whatever. It's Kirk, like, let's fuck with Khan as much as possible.
Yes.
But yeah, I just and it's a cool movie, and in this one, I think you're right though. I think it's an idea of here's this epic spectacle film because Star Trek was TV, right? And so now we have to show what you can do with a larger canvas and a much bigger budget and you know and make this giant movie with this giant cloud or whatever and for the most part I think it succeeds. It's just you know there was some parts I think they could have done an editing pass maybe to
Well,
to smooth out a few things, but
yeah,
I think you're right. This is basically Robert Wise's vision from like 2001 or whatever whenever they did the director's cut for real. So I don't think they changed much, but they definitely had to do stuff and remaster everything for 4K for sure. It's
yeah,
not just
yeah,
4K though; it's 4K UHD. So it's like
yeah.
everything is going to show
Yep.
if you can see it. But that's cool. You know what? I love the fact that they go back and they you know enhance these movies from the past. They don't change them, but they just sort of make them more palatable and better for the future. And it's nice to know they didn't like cut anything, which is good, I guess. So
Yeah, and
anyway,
yeah, I mean, so something like Star Trek: The Motion Picture, much like other sci-fi and even some other Star Trek episodes, you have this kind of thing that's unfathomable, threat that's like way above anything we can think of. So of course, the focus is on the characters, and I thought it did great character development. It was, at the time, even though Kirk was going to keep going on, we didn't know at the time for another 30 years or whatever. Here's someone facing basically a midlife crisis, but there was also things with the other characters like Spock and kind of bringing everybody back together. And what does that mean? And it wasn't just like, oh, hey, we're here. Let's go off and do this. They actually took time to deal with what the characters were going through. And I thought it was interesting. And like, again, it was like, what would happen if you got a group of old friends back together? It wouldn't just be instant. Hey, let's do what we did before. It'd be everyone's different. They've grown in different directions, and what would that mean? How would that be? He did that really well with this movie. Anyway.
yeah. Anyway, but you need a 4K TV or better to really
Yes.
sort of appreciate it. But I mean, I'll be watching it for sure. And it's been a while since I revisited it, though. Although it's funny when you're a kid, things are different. And in subsequent viewings, I don't find it like slow or anything now.
No,
Like
yeah.
I feel, the pacing doesn't bother me like it did. But I just remember that was my reaction. It's like, wow, nothing's really happening. But again, I was a kid, so
Right.
I'm sure that's part of it. And so your opinion of something is tainted over the years, and you grow to enjoy it more. And it doesn't bother you. You appreciate what's happening, and you appreciate what they're trying to do because there was an intention there for all of that. It's not like they added stuff for no reason.
Right.
But the other thing to keep in mind, kids, is that this movie came out, before MTV, right? So the idea of quick cuts and cutting to the action and starting with adagio and all that stuff wasn't a thing.
Yes.
It was, here's a movie. We're letting the shit unfold in front of you. However long it takes is how long it takes. Enjoy.
Yes.
So anyway, and maybe movies have suffered because of that kind of thing over the years. Maybe just the idea that you get 6 frames of an image and that's all you get. I'd like to see Michael Bay's version of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. it'd be 30 or Zack Snyder's Star Trek: The Motion Picture. It'd be like 30 minutes long and half of it would be in slow motion.
Yes. And it would also
Or
involve
6 hours.
There would be many explosions as well. No, it'd be about 6 hours.
And all of it half of it would be slow motion, and it would be a lot of rain, and you could barely see anything. It would be super dark.
Yes.
And speaking of super dark, one of these days, you and I are going to talk about the Batman, Matt Reeves.
Someday I'm going to get to see it. So yes.
Yeah, I keep I bought tickets 2 times already, and I've returned them. And I just haven't gone. I don't know why. I guess I'm so reluctant to go to a theater, but I will watch it and we will talk about it. Apparently it's quite good. It's getting a lot of good praise. I don't know if it's making tons of money, but that doesn't always make any difference, but it looks cool. And I'd like to watch it. I like Matt Reeves as a filmmaker, and I never had a problem with Robert Pattinson as Batman or Bruce Wayne or whatever. And Zoe Kravitz, I imagine is an excellent Catwoman. Selena Kyle. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't see her being bad at anything, frankly. But again, she got robbed because her show got canceled on Hulu. I think that was dumb, but
That was
whatever.
I liked that first season, High Fidelity.
I did
I
too.
thought it
High
was
Fidelity.
really
Yeah, it was a
great.
good show.
I liked the characters, and I was
They should
excited
have
to
kept
see
it going.
more. So
Yeah, that was
disappointing.
bullshit. Hulu. Good job,
Yeah, way to go,
fucking
Hulu.
Hulu. Hulu assholes and Netflix too canceling shit. At
Yeah,
least there'll be more seasons of The Witcher. Thank goodness.
there'll probably be more Squid
Which
Games.
it's funny. There's going to be definitely a second season of Squid Game. They're not stupid. They're just kind of dicks, but they're not dumb.
They're going to do the
milk
second
that
season
cow
so
as long
that
as
they
can.
can then cancel it. Of course, you know.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, but yeah, Squid Game was cool. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very clever. And
Still haven't
also,
watched it. But
if you know the sort of context, if you know, well, I'll be honest, if you know how to speak Korean, then you're going to know more of what's going on than there's a lot more subtleties
Sure.
going on in there than there is in the subtitled version. But still, an excellent show. If you haven't watched Squid Game, it's not my pick today, but I picked it before. It's a great show, and you should watch it. And you should, you know what, watch the Hulu show too. Watch High Fidelity because it's a good first season,
Yes.
and there's definitely some closure. I enjoyed it. You know, I got to be honest though, when I first heard about it, I was skeptical because I love the John Cusack.
Oh yeah, me
version
too.
of the
I was
film
like, what?
so much.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, really, a series? And I don't know, but it totally worked, and it was really well done. I think that was the High Fidelity movie was the first time I'd ever seen Jack Black in anything. Maybe
I think
don't
so
remember. But
too. Yeah, same here.
he was excellent in that. So, and John Cusack, of course, was excellent. But anyway, should we go to picks?
We should.
We're already talking too much. Excuse me. Do you want to go first?
Yes, I will go first.
We both let's clear our throats
Yes.
before we do anything. Jesus.
Now we're on hour 3 of the podcast. I have to clear my throat and get on.
Yes, this is the throat clearing podcast where Joe and I will clear our throats. Excuse
For
me.
2.5 hours. Yeah. Well,
2.5 hours. All right.
all right. So I'm going to pick a technology, and it's called Tinkercad. And it's a web application. And so I think, as everybody knows, and I've made it very clear, I'm a huge 3D printing enthusiast. I keep buying 3D printers and keep printing lots and lots of things. But I have...
Yes, your things have converged. I noticed you printed something about a Marillion thing.
Yes.
So now all of your interests are converging. That's nice.
Yes. Well, so as part of this, there has been a growing desire to, it's nice to find great things to print, but what about, making my own things? So, I've not really jumped yet into the whole 3D design, but there is a website, tinkercad.com, from Autodesk, that is a very basic kind of CAD program, but it's really easy to learn and really easy to use. So I was like, you know what? There is nothing out there, shockingly. There's nothing out there, shockingly, for 3D printing anything Marillion based. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to play around and make my own thing. So I started simple with one of their logos and making a box basically to put it in. And it was surprisingly easy to develop and make in Tinkercad, and it was very cool. So now that's kind of inspired me to go, okay, so I can slowly work my way up and get more complex. Because there's been things like specific like microphones or headphone stands and little things that I'm like, man, it would be good to have something like that. I'd like to print out something like that instead of buying it. Haven't really found anything online that already made. So now I'm like, yeah, I'll start working my way up and design those things myself.
Cool.
Much like brewing your own beer, there's something satisfying about 3D printing something. And there's some wonderful things out there, and I found some great stuff that I've yet to print from some great designers. But there's something a little bit special and cool about printing something you've created. I've been bitten by the bug, and I'm on the road. And
That's awesome. Yeah, we're gonna have to have an intervention at some point because it sounds like you're hooked, man. It sounds like an addiction. No, it's cool.
well,
It's really cool. I think 3D printing is awesome. I maybe I'll get a 3D printer someday too. But I do have something for you to print for me though eventually.
yes.
but not today. And I totally understand what you're talking about as far as creating things and making things with your own hands. Because as I've talked about in the last couple of episodes, I'm back drawing and more of an artistic kick again. And I don't want to say kick because that makes it sound like it's not going to happen for very long. It's just going to be like a fad. But
Sure.
I'm really enjoying the time I get to create things artistically speaking. I love photography and I love all that stuff, but that kind of comes in with my pick. Last week I picked something that has to do with that. And this week I'm also picking something. And this week I'm picking the Sakura Pigma Micron pens. And I know people are going to be like, what? Pens? That's a weird pick. But no, but bear with me. As you might know, I love analog things. I love pencils and pens and all that stuff. These pens are permanent. See, the reason I picked these is because they're permanent black ink, which was invented by Sakura over 30 years ago. And it continues to be the most reliable permanent ink pen in the market.
Nice.
And I'm reading that off their website. So there you go.
Nice.
But the reason that I love these is you can draw with them. They come in different sizes, and they're all permanent ink, as I said. And you sketch out your picture that you want to have, and then you can paint over it because it's permanent ink and it doesn't smear with the watercolors and all that stuff. So now some people will go and they'll do a pencil sketch first, and then they'll line it with the black ink or different colors. They have colors too, but I mostly use the black ones. But I just kind of go with the pen first, and then because it's a rough sketch, so it doesn't have to be perfect. The lines don't have to be perfectly straight or anything, and then you add the color, and it's super fun. But I couldn't really. I mean, there are other permanent ink pens out there, and I also have a fountain pen which I have permanent ink in, which I also sketch with sometimes. But these things, I've had these for years, and they just always work. It's just one of those reliable tools. You just pick up the Sakura Pigma Micron pen, and you just start drawing with it, and it always does the job. And it's a well-made tool, and it's not super expensive, and I appreciate that. It's a simplistic tool, well-made, that doesn't cost an arm and a leg, and it's reliable, and you can't really go wrong with it. So that's my pick, the Pigma Micron from Sakura.
Nice. Excellent.
And it works well. Anyway, so find the Flickcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the other places you find podcasts. Joe and I are on the socials. Joe is at What Joe Writes. I am at Chris U, and also Ulrich Picks on Instagram. And of course, the Flickcast is at TheFlickcast. And you can find the Flickcast Patreon. If you want to throw the show a couple dollars, that's great. Patreon.com/TheFlickcast. We'd appreciate that. And of course, we also appreciate ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or wherever rating or reviewing the show is always appreciated. You can be honest. I mean, high reviews are great, but honesty is great too.
Yes.
So if your honest review happens to be very positive, that's even better for everybody.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
That's the ideal combination, really. Positive and high ratings are great. But
Yes.
And then of course we're at our collaboration with Whiskey and Waffles on Discord. You can hit us up there and talk shit, or find us on Facebook as people have, or whatever. You know what? We're almost everywhere, so you can probably find us. I think that's all the places you can find things. I do that spiel every week, and you think I'd remember everything I have to say, but I'm not a professional, so
No,
it's okay.
I just play one on a podcast. Anyway.
I think that's it, though.
I think that's
anything
it.
else from you, Joe?
No, I think I've said.
All right, well, that's enough ranting. Let's end the show. For Joe Dilworth, I'm Chris Ulrich. That was the Flickcast. Thanks so much for listening.